Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks. I've been on vacation, so I know we didn't have some live shows for a few weeks, but we're back now, ready to go, and I'm excited, guys. Thank you for joining us again for another RepPath podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that isn't really an entry level topic by any means, and it's basically for any experienced rep. Doesn't matter if it's medical device sales, pharma. It doesn't matter if you're in the medical sales industry. This is anyone that's dealing with a micromanager, okay, and how to work with micromanagers. And I know just hearing that word, majority out there are getting chills because they suck. Nobody wants to work with a micromanager. They're a pain in the ass, right? Straight up. But there is a way to work with them and to navigate that space where it's not so doom and gloom just because you have a micromanager. I mean, because there are some micromanagers out there that if they can make you a better rep and put more money in your pocket and get a bigger bonus check, and so what about them being a little bit more of a pain in the neck to deal with? But we're going to talk about that before we get into, dealing with micromanagers and how to navigate that type of relationship. As always, guys, please submit any questions you have from this moment on into the chat. About halfway through, I'll be taking Q&A where we'll be able to go over whatever concerns or challenges you're having or anything that you'd like to ask. Please, throw it into the chat, and James, my producer, will take care of that. Secondly, if you have not subscribed yet, to get this content, any of this recorded content, whether it's a podcast or any of the posts that I do, everything is saved on my YouTube account. So please subscribe to Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching so you can get that information. You can see it right there on the screen. So you can get all this content, because I'm constantly getting asked after if this was recorded. So please subscribe to Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching and you'll be all set. Today we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And we're also on every podcast platform, known to man, as always. So to jump right in, guys, micromanagers. All right. I've had plenty of micromanagers in my day. I've had a lot of managers throughout my career. I'd say 99% of them were outstanding individuals. I really did. They all brought a little something different to the table that helped me become a better salesman. So some I worked better with than others. Some were challenging. We butt heads a lot, but it's still, at the end of the day, you did move forward. There are a couple out there that I didn't work well with, and I didn't enjoy working with. And basically every time I had a ride along or had a meeting, I'm sure you guys have been there. You like pray for something to happen so the meeting gets canceled. I worked with certain managers that when they called me the day before and said something changed in their plans and they had to move me to another day, I was, doing cartwheels because I couldn't stand working with these individuals, So, and a lot of times it's dealing with that micromanager. We've all been there. We've all had those types of managers. So first off, let's describe what is a micromanager to me. Okay. And that's someone that's just constantly on you, and it may not be you. Sometimes, which we'll talk about later, you have to see, is this the way they work, or are they just trying to bust you and trying to get you because they don't like you for some reason, because that could be the case too. You have to be able to decipher. Again, we'll talk about this. Is this someone that's the way they work? They're just a micromanager, or are they micromanaging you? And if they're micromanaging you, that's a problem. If they're just singling you out, they have a problem with you. Okay, believe you guys, I know this. It's not rocket science. They're looking to force you out. Okay, so you have to make sure, is that the way they work, or is it just you? So let's assume that's just the way they work. So what does that look like? Typical micromanager, they're constantly asking for updates. That's one of the first things for me, is they need you to send them a daily update. They need you to constantly send them after, calls, any success or challenges. They want the update right away. Now sometimes that might not be a big deal, but sometimes it's a pain in the ass, guys. You got a million things going on. to send, especially it involves usually what micromanagement to me is more paperwork. It's that manager that's constantly asking you to do more. I'm not talking about doing an expense report that we all have to do, but sending you this extra Excel sheet that only your region is using because they need you to enter in extra call notes or progress throughout a pipeline that you're dealing with. I have one quick micromanaging story. I had a manager that would call the morning of to tell you they're riding with you. Now, I'm sorry, guys. Yes, we're always prepared. I don't need someone to check on me in the morning, to see where I'm going. But the fact that to me is an disorganized manager. I know me and this individual, we used to butt heads. So yeah, maybe she was trying to get me out of there. I don't really know. Personally, I don't care. But someone that is calling you the morning of to say at 6:30 a.m., Joe, I'll see you in an hour. Let me know where you're going to be. I'll meet you at this hospital. And that's a real situation that I was dealing with, that I didn't know when. And sometimes I had, 2 different ride-alongs in a week where she just called me out of the blue and drove me crazy. But honestly, I was like, I don't care. Bring it, because I really did not like working with this individual anyway, but I wasn't going to let her beat me by being a micromanager, So that was just a quick little story. Another one, every time I had a meeting with anyone in the C-suite level, they wanted an absolute, this individual wanted, a whole novel written about everything that we discussed, the next steps moving forward, what detail aids were used. Basically wanted me to, I was better off videoing it and sending this individual the recording because that's how much detail they wanted. To me, at the end of the day, yes, you need the details. You need to get to the point of where you are, what challenges you're having, how can you overcome them? But bottom line, is the sale moving forward or not? And when you're focusing on too much detail, too much paperwork, too much busy work, that's a micromanager, where they need to know and be in control of everything. Now, to me, micromanagement is not a good quality. Okay. You have to trust your employees because what happens now to the reps when you micromanage a rep, not only are you going to piss everyone off because no one wants that. Most sales reps take these roles because of the freedom. Who doesn't love being in the car all day by themselves where they can not only get their job done, but also if you have to run an errand and your wife needs you to pick up something at the food store, you could do that, throughout your day, and not have to worry about someone constantly looking over you like if you're in an office. So most people take this job for the freedom. So when a micromanager does that and creates this type of environment, you're going to piss everyone off. Okay? You're going to reduce their confidence that you have as a sales rep. That's how I would feel. If you're watching everything I do and constantly on top of me, you're going to make me feel that you're not confident in my abilities, So it's very demoralizing to the team because they're not going to have that confidence and they're going to be upset. So it just doesn't make sense to me to have that type of approach. Okay. If you're hiring well, then you got the right people in place. So don't make them feel like you have to watch over every move they make. But you got to understand though, guys, in fairness, why does this exist? Why are there micromanagers out there? And sometimes it's really not their fault. And I know you're going to see it go, Joe, you're defending a micromanager. And yes, I am. Even though I hate that type of work style, but they exist for a reason. And again, this sometimes comes from the company demands. They have bosses too, guys. And sometimes they are being micromanaged themselves. And this is, through an organization where an organization gets themselves into trouble because sometimes when you have a couple of leaders up top, and you have certain methods that you're using, it's going to trickle down. And you don't want that kind of culture within an organization where everyone is on edge. Okay, that's no place to be for an organization. But this is a reason, though, why micromanagers sometimes exist, because they are being hit with timelines and demands that are pretty much a lot of times are unattainable. So if you have an unattainable number, you're going to start just getting on every little aspect of your employee's day to micromanage and totally be on top of. And again, not a good reason, but there are reasons out there why this individual is doing that. Okay. The other reason is they don't trust you. It's just that simple. I mean, again, this is when you have to find out, is this manager doing this with all the other reps? When you speak to your colleagues, which you all do, and we'll just make up, Ben as the imaginary manager. Is Ben doing this when you're in the field, Joe, or Bob? Is he doing this with you? And if they say no, Joe, he kind of lets me do my thing, then you have to have that conversation with Ben. You don't want to deal with this, guys. You want to be transparent. I'm not saying be confrontational, but if they don't trust you, because that's really what micromanagement is. If they are totally on and they're only on you, that means they do not trust you. There's something you're not doing right. Now, it could be warranted. Are you the type of individual that always sends your your expense report a week or two late? I know as a manager that pissed me off with reps. If we have to get your expenses in every Friday, know what the best reps did? They got it in Thursday night. Every Thursday, I knew on the clockwork, certain reps, they would have their expense report done. And then the reps that I'm constantly on, it's always a week and a half late. Then they build up a huge expense report and then are upset when it takes a while for them to get it reimbursed. So if there's a reason, guys, you want to be able to fix it too. So you want to go in there open-minded, that you're there looking to learn. And when you have that conversation with your manager, and be like, be transparent. I feel like you don't trust me. I'm getting a lot of requests that I'm more than happy to work my butt off, but I feel like there's a disconnect and I want to discuss it. You don't have to be like, hey man, you're really pissing me off. You're micromanaging the shit out of me and I don't want to work in this environment. Change it or I'm gone. No, guys, that's no way to approach your manager. Just be like, please, can we talk about it? Because I feel like that there's a lack of trust here and I want to be able to fix that. And they might say to you, yeah, Joe, I got to be honest. You get me upset. You never send your paperwork on time, whatever your admin is, whether it's an expense report, whether it's Excel sheets that I send out and you don't send back on time. These are conversations that you need to have because you got to be able to fix it, guys. And you don't get combative. Okay. If that's what they see, then you want to fix it. Okay. So you want to have these conversations. It's okay if they don't trust you and there's a problem. You want to fix that problem, or your time at that company isn't going to last because either they're going to fire you or you're going to look for another job. It's just that simple, guys. Nobody wants to be in that awkward environment with their manager. So just have an upfront, honest conversation, and then you'll be able to, see if this is a you problem or is this just the way the manager works. So what the big question here is, what do we do then? How do you deal with a micromanager? Okay. And the number one way to work with a micromanager is to be proactive, guys. Always be proactive with getting your assignments in. Trust me. If someone is calling you at a certain time every week or every day, they're going to ask for something. Be proactive and get it to them ahead of time. Don't make excuses, guys, because for the most part, yes, there's always a lot of admin in these jobs that's no one really wants to do. They want to just sell all day long. But the reality is, the average rep probably only sells about 5% of the time. The rest is traveling. The rest is research. The rest is just trying to get through the door. Parking your car, walking into the hospital takes time. All these things, admin, all this stuff takes time. So you're only selling only a fraction of the time. So make sure that you're doing all aspects of your job well and in a timely manner. Because when you do want to get promoted and you do want to progress in your career, any sales leader needs that skill. Okay. The best sales reps don't actually turn out to be the best managers. I mean, sometimes they do, but a lot of times the most organized individuals are the ones, especially if you're a VP and you're looking for another regional sales manager. Joe can have the best numbers in the region and crushing it, but he's that guy that constantly doesn't send his work in on time. He's constantly 3 weeks behind in his expense report. He formats his Excel sheets differently than everyone else does. So now the manager's constantly having to change that. Basically, Joe is an administrative nightmare, but his numbers are great. That's not the individual that typically is going to be picked to lead a team. The one that is always on time, that's always getting the reports done, that is doing everything asked of them and is being proactive. Don't wait to be asked to do a task. Make sure you're doing it before they have to reach out to you. So you want to have a conversation with your manager, especially if you're in this, weird place where you don't know if it's a you problem or what they want, but you want to sit down with them and find out exactly what they want, when they want it. Because a lot of times these things kind of spiral out of control where you're dealing with a micromanager and you're like, I really don't even know what the heck this guy's asking for. Most of us, don't sit down and go, okay, let's try to find the disconnect. What exactly do you want? When do you want it? How do you want that sent over? And it's something simple. I mean, as a manager, if you could show them that you understand that that's annoying to them and you're going to fix it. For instance, if I had certain Excel sheets that I would send out and I would want them to title it with their last name first, last name, the title of the spreadsheet, and the date. That's it. Now I would get guys that would just send the date. They would just put their name. They would just put the title. They didn't follow the format. Now, a lot of times I'm so busy, I just change it quickly and save it. But the reps that really were on their shit would have conversations with me and say, hey, Joe, I've been sending it this way. How do you want it? Vic, thank you for asking. Actually, this is the way I do this is how I do it. So if you can, it makes my life easier. Just something that simple makes me appreciate that rep even more because it shows that they care how I want things done. Okay. And all it is a conversation, guys. It's not hard. So make sure you're aligning the expectations with your manager because then you guys are on the same page and that will reduce, it won't feel like micromanaging. If someone has to constantly tell you that you're doing things wrong, you might think that's micromanaging, but it might just be you that you constantly aren't listening. Okay. So you want to have that upfront conversation. Now, if you're doing all the things that this individual is asking of you in a timely manner, and then they're still always on top of you, again, that's time for another conversation. We have to have a very transparent sit down with your manager to say, okay, I've done everything that you've asked. Where else is the disconnect? And then have that, deeper conversation. But for the most part, if you're proactive and getting them those reports, getting them whatever they ask ahead of time, you're going to minimize majority of that micromanaging. I'm telling you guys, I mean, a lot of you on the weekends, I was like this too. Weekends were my time. Unless I had an emergency from a doctor or a patient, I was not answering my calls. I want it to be, family, friends, having fun. But if you spend an hour on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, I mean, I'm a big football fan. Nothing is going to interrupt from 9 to 10 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday. Even if you're going to church, doesn't matter what it is. You have an hour that you could put aside that you could just get organized for the week. If there's a couple emails, couple reports that your manager wants on a Monday, send them on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's going to go such a long way. and it also shows that you're thinking about your job on the weekend too, where it's, again, I'm not saying you have to be a workaholic and just work 24/7, but it shows that you're on top of your shit. So do that. Spend 1 hour a weekend if you haven't already. And I'm telling you, it's going to make your administrative skills, just dwindle compared to waking up on a Sunday morning with a little bit of a hangover. You feel like crap. And now you got a call at 7 a.m. and your manager wants to know, where's that report that I asked for? Get all that stuff in, guys. It's going to make your week go so much smoother. It's going to start out so much smoother, and you're going to get into a good routine. But at the end of the day, it's going to minimize that manager calling you. Okay. So that's whether you have a micromanager or not, to be honest with you. Put that hour in. That's for you, not even for your manager. It's to make your life easier. Start doing that now, because it's going to help you throughout the week. I would always, when you're dealing with a micromanager, anything you want to document. Okay, because again, you have to worry about your careers, guys, because I know this is not like the friendly talk about, all the positives of medical sales. This is real. You have to cover yourself. If you're just the type that is calling a manager and you called them 5-6 times and they're not getting back to you, and you're in a bad situation with this manager, I mean, I've seen it, guys. I've learned from mentors in my past that you want to get documented on email, where if you need an important meeting, I'm not saying every little thing. I mean, of course, it's easy to text your manager, hey, great call before, Dr. Jones committed to a trial for next week or whatever update. I'm okay with that. But if there's important meetings that you are requesting him or her to fly out to, or you want to sit down and have a meeting with them for important, situations either in your territory or with you personally, anything, get it over email. Get those documented that show that you reached out to them, because sometimes managers get busy and they miss that email. Now, if you call them and they're like, Joe, I never got that call, and now you're trying to prove on a phone call, when's the last time you called them, and scrolling through your phone and you can't remember. At least with an email, that's documented. It's clear as day. You sent it at 3:15 on Tuesday. Here's the email you can resend, So those are important, because most micromanagers, they love data. They love, they're constantly, critiquing every little move you're making. So be proactive about that and send it where it's recorded. So that you're covering your ass, basically. So that's something to do, though, guys. You want to make sure that you want to have this stuff documented, especially if it's something that you feel that manager's targeting you. So show that you're being proactive. You have the times that you sent out the request. You have the times that you gave these updates, because a lot of times you just leave messages over the phone. Sometimes it's forgotten, and sometimes there's really no way to prove when you called or when you did that. It's just easier over email, guys. So next thing is, be respectful and by setting boundaries. Okay. And that's part of that transparency conversation that you're having with your manager, where you want to sit down and ask, like, hey, when do you like me to send these by? At what times, are you unavailable? How do you like me to contact you? All those things you want to have, where it's just like dealing with your customers. If your customer is asking you for a certain method of, don't email that to me, Joe, just text me. Or when people actually did send faxes, sometimes people just wanted the fax. I mean, whatever it is, whatever they want, that's your job to accommodate them. Your manager is still one of your customers in my book. So treat them just like a customer. And you're going to see that your manager is not your babysitter, guys. A lot of people, you look back like, oh, my manager will help me out. My manager will handle that. Like, no, you want to be in control. And when you treat your managers like a customer, that's giving them more respect and the time. Just like you value your customers' time, you should do the same with your manager. So if they have certain ways that they want things sent to them, just like I was saying about the way I want it titled on a spreadsheet, if you can make their lives easier, it's going to help your relationship and show your attention to detail, guys. So do that. But you got to have those conversations where you set the boundaries, from jump. Okay. And the last thing to do is anticipate their needs. That there's nothing better than that. If you've seen any, I'm going to embarrass myself, but I don't care. One of my favorite movies actually is The Devil Wears Prada. And I know people are going to be laughing their asses off with that. But in the movie, there's a scene where Anne Hathaway's character is working for Meryl Streep, and she has to get this Harry Potter book. And so Meryl Streep was basically giving her a challenge to get this manuscript for her grandkids or for her children. Long story short, throughout the process, she thought she was going to fail. She not only wound up doing it, but then she went like 3 steps ahead and anticipated what she wanted from her. And she already got the books to the children when they were like going to their grandmother's house or whatever was already sent to them. Whole point of that, though, was she impressed her because she anticipated her needs and got to it before she had to ask. So if you start becoming one of those reps where your manager, most of us know this. When you're working with a manager, you're anticipating, what they're going to ask for after a few times. So don't wait for them to ask. They don't have to do that, guys. Why torture them and make them go through those motions? Just send it to them. Do it ahead of time. Like I said, if I want something on a Friday, why are you waiting till Friday when you could get it done on a Thursday? I'm the type, I want to crush it off. If I have a laundry list of things that I need to get done, I want to check it off, erase it off my calendar, and move on to the next thing. You don't want that thing lingering there. So if you have the time to get something done, just get it off. Clean your slate. You're going to be a much better rep by doing that, because the job is tough enough. It's hard enough to convince doctors to use your products. It's hard enough to get them to switch from someone else. That's what you really want to focus on. So all these little tasks, don't let them linger. Just get it done. But anticipate the needs of your manager and send the request before they have to ask. You're going to see it's going to be great, because it minimizes that micromanaging that make them not be able to micromanage, if that's possible, if that makes sense to you. And by being proactive and anticipating needs, those are 2 of the fundamentals that will minimize that micromanaging from a pain in the neck manager. Okay. So, next thing is getting back to, we talked about the manager really pressing you, and is it a you thing or a management a management style? And if it's a you thing, and now you've done everything, you've had the conversations, you've had the transparency conversations, you ask what their needs were, and you're meeting them. You're doing everything possible, and they are still a pain in the neck, lack of another term. They're just still totally all over you, right? And so it's like there's nothing else that can work. Now it's like, okay, now what do we do for the next step? Now, me personally, I like just being very direct with whoever it is. I don't care if it's my manager or not. I want to have a conversation. I would have one last conversation, and get that on record, because after you have that meeting, send that email. Again, the email is powerful, guys, because when you're dealing in these situations, you want that transparency. So you want that recorded. Here's what we discussed. Here's exactly what we said moving forward, just so we're on the same page. Just wanted to get over, this recap, so it's recorded. Okay. But if you're still not going anywhere, guys, you have 2 options. You either can go above your manager to their boss, which again, if you're getting nowhere, they don't give you any option. So you can do that. Or, unfortunately, it's time to look for a new job. Okay. You could take the third route, which is going to HR, filing a complaint, basically, ratting your manager out, which if you want to do that, that's not the approach I would take. I'd rather be very transparent with my manager, or go to their boss and say, I'm not getting anywhere here. how can we navigate this situation? And maybe the three of you could sit down where you have someone else that's listening to them. Don't be afraid, guys. The worst thing you want to do is be afraid and say, I have to deal with this. That's my boss. Do not be afraid of anyone in this industry should make you feel nervous or uncomfortable. Like every time you're working with them, if you're cringing every time you have to work with someone, that's a bad situation, guys. They should be there to help you. They should be there to help you grow and make as much money as possible. That's what a manager does. A manager helps you drive results. If they're not doing that, they're not doing their job either. Okay, so if you're in an uncomfortable situation where you just feel terrible every time, you got to nip that, guys. So my two approaches: either speak directly to your manager, not working, get their boss involved. Don't be afraid. Well, if I go to my boss, then I'm in trouble. Who cares, guys? Don't be afraid. Okay, because most managers, they don't want that. It might piss them off, but so what? This situation has been created and you're trying to fix it. Okay, so those are possible last steps, because really at the end of the day, if now you have a director or a VP that's above them that they're not seeing your point of view, really, guys, it's time to move on. If you can deal with that and you want to deal with that, great. Most people don't want to deal with that. There's other jobs out there. There's a lot of great companies. There's a lot of great managers. You don't want to put up with that for a lifetime. That's no way to live. But we're going to take a pause right now, just because I have to take a drink of water, and we're going to see if we have any questions from the audience. James, do we have anything?
We do. We have a couple questions coming in, but at first I want to comment. Really, Devil Wears Prada is your favorite movie?
I know. I said it's one of my favorites. I'm actually excited for the sequel that's coming out soon.
I almost, if you weren't in a good flow, I was going to jump right in and say something. But
I don't care if I'm getting busted. But it's a great movie. Have you ever seen it?
No, I haven't. But I thought it was a chick flick.
Yeah, Nick has seen it. He won't admit it, but
of course Nick has seen it. Let's be real. How do you not take micromanager personally when it feels like the manager doesn't trust you?
Well, again, like I was talking about before, you have to see if they're doing this with other people. So if you feel like, oh man, this guy's really on me all the time, and I mean, number one, have a conversation with the guy, excuse me, or whoever your manager is, have a conversation with them. But also, you're going to be talking to your teammates, and they could just say, Joe, that's just the way he is. He doesn't mean it. And you'll find that if that manager is really not after you, because again, micromanagement could be viewed two different ways. If they're doing that with everyone else, then and it's bothering everyone, then start, say, guys, let's have a meeting. Let's bring this up on a conference call. And they're not going to want to piss off the whole team, guys. It's just like a politician. Yeah, they don't care if a few people don't like them, but if the masses don't like them, they will change because they're going to be the ones that are gone. Okay. I mean, I actually had that instance years ago, and I wouldn't go to the company, but basically I had a friend in HR and said, Joe, if you get everyone to, put a complaint together, the company will never go against the masses. And I just wouldn't do that. I decided to have a conversation with the manager and be more direct. And then we had a conversation with the team, and it wound up getting worked out better than the way the individual was. That individual wind up not staying with the company anyway. But if you get the team together and it's a problem for everyone, then things can be changed. But if it's just you, then you got to figure that out yourself, because odds are that person is micromanaging you because you're not doing your job. They don't like to just single out people that are doing well and are making, hitting their number, doing all their admin work on time. They're not going to just pick on you for no reason. So you got to look at yourself first and see, am I the problem, and fix it.
Do you think potential clients pick up when a rep is being second guessed by their boss?
Well, if I've been there before too. If a manager does that on a sales call in front of a customer, that's just awful on the manager's part. Now, there's ways that managers can be there to help a rep where the rep was screwing up and either not being able to answer a challenging question or just didn't have enough information where they, sometimes reps, they get a little tongue tied. They don't want to admit, I really don't know that answer. And they start talking in circles and the manager's there to correct them in a nice way, then that's fine. But if a manager is openly, telling, showing that doctor that this rep is not doing his job and he's upset with them, I mean, that would just be terrible on the manager's part because that rep has to go back there over and over and over without that manager. And if that doctor is viewing that rep as someone they can't trust, then it's going to hurt the company. So that would be stupid on the manager's part. I think that most managers are good managers out there, that they would just help the rep, get them to be able to answer that question. So next time they're good on their own, but they should never make that customer feel that this rep can't be trusted, because that just hurts everyone.
Click your phone. We can hear the vibrating.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Do you think micromanagement is worse in pharma versus medical sales?
Yeah, I would say pharma. I dealt with micromanagement more in pharma because honestly, my view in medical sales, there's way more going on because of the case management. So for instance, most reps on the medical device side are covering cases. They're not just selling all day long. I mean, there's probably some jobs out there, but like I was saying in the call during the podcast, it's on average about 5 to 7% of the time where you're actually selling. So for instance, when I was working at Boston Scientific or Stereotaxis, we were in cases at Boston Scientific. Sometimes it could be a few hours. At Stereotaxis, sometimes it was up to like 12, 14-hour cases. I mean, there were some really long cases out there. So you're busy doing real clinical work, where they can't constantly just unload a lot of administrative work on you because you really don't have the time because of the covering cases and being with physicians. I mean, that's the most important time that you're with them, is during a case, because you got a lot of selling time, a lot of face time. You build tremendous relationships during that time. And it is harder for a pharma rep because majority of them are having, meetings either at a lunch, breakfast. They're, seeing doctors for a few minutes at a time. They're not spending a couple hours during the doctor's office hours and just shadowing them and asking them questions all day. I mean, no. So they have more time. Give me 1 sec. I just got to plug my battery in. Sorry. Just noticed a low battery.
One more thing we got to add to Joe's checklist.
Yep. Sorry, guys. I actually charged it too, and I didn't realize that we got low again. All right, we're all good now. So, what was I saying with the?
It was the pharma versus.
Oh yeah, pharma. So a lot of pharma reps, they just, just by the nature of the job, they have more time on their hands. And a lot of times companies come out with initiatives that, unless there's a real purpose and they're going to use these things, for instance, there was one time that I had about maybe 30 hospitals, targeted hospitals in my territory throughout New Jersey and New York. And they had this master spreadsheet that they wanted every department filled out with every name of every nurse, every physician, where they were throughout the pipeline. And it was so crazy, the amount of administrative work, that at the end of the day, you're like, well, is this going to help us sell more? is this going to actually bring more prescriptions in and bring more revenue in for the company? Is this helpful? And a lot of times it wasn't. This thing actually, within a few months, we never did it again, never came back to that spreadsheet. And there's been dozens and dozens of stories that I have where, it seemed more on the pharma side. And this is nothing against pharma, but companies come out with these initiatives, just to keep reps busy, and that I'm not a fan of keeping someone busy just for busy's sake. If there's an admin, if there's a spreadsheet that takes a long time, but once it's done, it provides such valuable information that's going to help you sell, then I'm all about that. But a lot of busy work and a lot of that micromanaging just to keep reps busy, I did see it more in pharma only because a lot of managers felt that they have more time on their hands where they can handle more of this work.
We got you kind of answered at the beginning of the show, but what was your worst micromanaging experience you personally went through in your career, Joe, and how'd you handle it?
Yeah, it was dealing with that individual. Excuse me. Sorry. They're calling me the morning of every time to book a ride along. I mean, that happened maybe 4 or 5 times in a row. And then finally, the main thing was, I really do think that individual was trying to get me fired. We just didn't see eye to eye. My numbers were good. I was in the top 20% with all my metrics. I was actually, doing well, just got promoted. So I really just didn't, I didn't like that individual. They didn't like me. And they, that calling me in the morning of saying, hey, I'll be there in an hour, after a few times. And the fact that I actually had things scheduled, because I think what she was trying to do was catch me, oh, I don't have anything booked this morning. She was waiting for me to do that. And even if I didn't have something booked, I was still going to tell her, yes, come meet me here, because I didn't want to give her that satisfaction. After a few times, that's when we had the tough conversation. And, she denied it. She said that's just sometimes the way she works, but it was a bunch of nonsense. She wound up leaving the company anyway. She wasn't well liked, and it was just an unfortunate situation, but that was probably the worst. There's a lot of admin work. There's a lot of, doing extra busy work just to keep you busy, which is annoying. But the older you get, you realize that, you don't want to question and be the one person like, why are we doing this, and being negative. You don't ever want to do that, but if you truly feel like that there's no value, then have the conversation with the manager. And especially if there's other teammates that all feel the same way, then jump on a call and get a better understanding. Because trust me, they will feel the pressure of other individuals. If they're pissed off too, they will change their micromanaging ways, because they know that they can't go against a whole team, because the company's not going to want that. They're going to see them as the problem. So just, again, you're dealing with micromanagers, nip it in the bud the quicker you can, the better it will be for you and for your mind.
Joe, if your direct manager is constantly over your shoulder, but the higher ups really like your results, how do you balance that?
Well, if you're doing well and the manager is constantly over your shoulder, I mean, for me, you're in a good situation, because there's no better job security than having good numbers. So if you're doing everything right, and you have to first off figure out, are they over my shoulder because of me? And am I causing this? Or is there something I could do to fix it? So if it's you just not getting your work done on time, then you got to fix it on your end. But if everything is totally, this person is out to get you, then again, like I said, have that upfront conversation. If they're not listening, definitely call their boss, because their boss, but the way this description is, you're a rock star. You're crushing your number. They're not going to want to piss you off. And again, it's just your approach. It's not about going and ratting out your manager and saying he's being mean to me or she's being mean to me. It's like, no, I've had conversations. I want to know, is this something that we can fix because I'm doing well? I want to continue to, produce and be a high performer for this company. But a lot of these things are becoming challenging, in my daily activities where I don't want it to start affecting my results. They're going to jump right on that, guys. They don't want your results and then your work to suffer. So if you're in one of those weird situations where you're crushing it, you're in the driver's seat. So have the conversation with your manager, and then if they're not listening, go speak to their director or whoever else. And just, again, it's the way you do it. You don't go in pissed off. You don't go in a complaining mode. It's more in a resolving something, and you want to fix it. There's a big difference, because you could piss off the director or the VP, because, again, you never know the relationships they have. And really, you don't, if you're right and you feel like you're being, singled out, it doesn't matter. You want to get this nipped in the bud as quickly as possible. So, go through those two routes first. And then, again, if it's not working after that, then you have to have more difficult decisions.
Joe, my boss insists on being copied on every single email. How do I handle that without going crazy?
Well, is it that hard to, well, first off, I would say I don't know if that's a real micromanagement objection, because most managers can see your emails. If it's a company computer, they could see everything that you guys send on that computer. So, if they want to be copied on every single email, then copy them on every single email. That's simple. That's, to me, that manager, who the heck wants, if they have 10 or 12 reps, they want to see every possible email. You know what? All the more, yes. Copy them, send it twice to torture them. I'm kidding, but if they're going to get 10 different reps, 12 reps, maybe, depending on how big their team is, seeing every possible email being sent to them and copied to them. There's no one that can handle that kind of volume of emails. They wouldn't be able to do anything else. So if they want that, I would simply just do it, because trust me, they're not reading all those emails anyway. And I think that's something that it wouldn't last. They'll wind up burning out, and within a month or two, they won't even ask to, because there's no way they can keep up with that. So I would just do it, because it's not hard to just CC a manager on an email.
Have you ever had a manager jump in a client meeting and derail the conversation completely? And how did you handle that?
Yes. Simply, if it was that bad, where the call just totally went off, the doctor is looking at you like, what the hell is going on here? I've had doctors actually say to me, don't ever bring that person back in here again. I've had that many times, and a lot of times it's with the same managers that aren't the good managers. It's just that simple. The one that I had an issue with, she was the same one that I had many doctors say, please don't bring her back here. She was very uncomfortable. She was just an awkward person in meetings. The first thing that I would do, though, is cleaning it up with that doctor. And number one, saying, I totally just apologize. It's awkward, but the next time, I would either shoot them a text, if I had their number, their cell on me, I would say, hey, Dr. Jones, I'm sorry. That was a dumpster fire. I totally apologize. And trust me, most doctors aren't going to take it out on you if they're using you, for instance, and they're not going to all of a sudden say, oh, wow, Joe, I can't believe you brought that manager in. You know what? I'm going to just stop using him because that manager pissed me off. All the more they understand that it's not you. They know that, they know, for instance, they don't like your manager. If you keep bringing that manager in, then it's your own fault. And if the manager asks, how come you haven't brought me back? I straight up tell them, I got to be honest. The doctor was turned off last time. He was very upset. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. So I figured I would just simply obey his wishes and not bring you back there. Now if they want to fix it, then you can, talk about that later on. But first thing you're doing is just hat in hand with the doctor. I'm sorry. I would never bring that person in if I think it would derail it like that. And most of the doctors, they're too busy, guys. they're not going to sit here and they don't have that much time to really, let this control their day. So usually it's a typical, Joe, that person's a pain in the neck. Please, she was annoying or he was annoying. Don't bring them back. You apologize, you move on, you laugh about it. You don't make it a big deal, but it's not something that's going to derail your territory or your numbers for quarter after quarter. If it does get to that point, then that's when you got to get, your manager's manager involved. And, again, this is something that can affect you and affect your job. You guys got to get in there and fix it. And obviously you can't bring your manager back in, so you need somebody else. Anything else?
Sorry, I was muted. Can trust ever be earned? I had to cough myself, Joe. Can trust ever be earned back once a micromanager has labeled you as unreliable?
100%. 100%. I mean, anything can be fixed. Anyone can change themselves for the better. I mean, the whole point of a good manager is to help you develop. So if they're there, they should be helping you get better anyway. There shouldn't be a one strike and you're out policy. If that's the case, that's a horrible manager. And most companies are not going to treat reps that way. So there's definitely, it's being self-aware. That's number one. And knowing that if you have an issue that it's your fault, fix it. Don't be stubborn. Don't say, oh, I never had this problem my previous manager, or I never had a problem my last company. No, you got to look at yourself first. I mean, you got to take responsibility. That's what a good leader does anyway. For some of you guys that want to be promoted and move on to management, I mean, that's one of the first skills that you need is you got to take responsibility and say, okay, well, what did I do wrong? I mean, that should be your mentality to begin with. It's not someone else is causing a problem. No, it's you first. Look at yourself first. And then obviously, if you're not doing anything, you're doing everything right, then you can, focus it on other areas. But I think that's the key first is looking at yourself. And if there is a problem, fixing it. And that definitely can be, you can change your, the way you're viewed by any manager or anybody, doesn't matter who they are, by proving it. So if you're someone that is known as being late on assignments, and then the next 3 months in a row, you're constantly sending assignments ahead of time, you're being proactive, trust me, that they're going to forget about your previous reputation. So just prove it by your actions, and you can change anything.
Should you document micromanagement behaviors in case you need to escalate it later?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you feel like you're being targeted, trust me, your gut is usually right. You got to start building a file. I mean, especially if you're reaching out to managers. And I mean, for instance, this is all the same manager. So I don't want you guys to think that I've had 100 bad managers. So we used to have what's called CPRs, coaching progress reports. When we would work with the manager, they would fill out, how you did, in all the different areas. They would grade you 1 to 5. And then they would send it to you first to see if you had an issue with anything. You would have a discussion. But if someone gave you a 2 out of 5 and you're like, why am I a 2? And you had valid reasons, you got to submit your reasoning on why you believe you're a 3 or a 4 or 5. And then they would have to have a discussion with you first. So essentially they couldn't just send you the CPR, say, here's your report, you suck. And that gets, documented for a lifetime. You would always, and everyone, especially with this manager, I knew that she was after me. I was always documenting and saying, and I do not agree and will not sign this form. So I did that with all my CPRs because all of them I didn't agree with. And she wasn't listening and was just submitting them. So that was a major, major red flag, major issue on her part, which was another reason why she could have been fired. But I still had everything, documented because I knew she was coming after me. So you had to make sure, like, no, look, I documented that I didn't agree to that, and I gave my reasons why I should be a higher ranking. I had that on file, which is going to prove my case if she is looking to fire me or take any action against me. You do have to protect yourself. And I know you don't want to do that. Nobody wants to spend their days at their job doing this type of crap. But trust me, document, keep it in a file. You never know later on if that's going to come back, and you want to have that documentation and also that support that you're not doing anything wrong. Anything else?
I'm sorry. What are some things that I can do tomorrow to push back on micromanagement without putting my job at risk?
Two main things. It's really one main thing, being proactive. Be proactive with everything. Find out exactly what they want, the way they want it. Because a lot of times this is admin stuff. When a micromanager is on you, or for instance, if they're constantly bothering you to one of the things that's common in pharma device, is role playing on calls. So managers that want to role play and you're constantly like, oh, can we just go in there and just, go live? Do we really have to always practice this? Like, these are our reps respond a lot. You want to take the wind out of the sales or manager, say, let's role play. We go in there. I want to role play, before we get into the field today. Before you leave the call, let's discuss that. Do the things that be proactive. You know that manager is going to do that. Welcome it. Not only you welcome it, prepare for that, guys. Prepare for the role play. Show that you put the work in. Don't just do this just to prove them wrong and show that you can beat the micromanager. No, get better at what you're doing. But also, if you're proactive and you want to do the things that typically reps are running away from, that's something that it'll take the wind out of the sails of that micromanager, because there's nothing to micromanage. If you're ready, you're asking to do the difficult stuff. You've already been proactive and sent all your admin work. Give them nowhere to go. Don't wait for them to say, hey, Joe, did you send that? No, you will send it a day ahead of time. If it's a Friday that something's due, send it on a Thursday. That's my best advice. Be proactive. Whatever deadline they give, do it a day ahead of time. And you will not have the problems that you're dealing with these micromanagers.
Are there any subtle signs during the interview process that a company might have a micromanagement culture?
It's that you're going to find out by asking questions during the interview, asking the management style, asking, how do they operate? How do they work with their reps? What are some of the responsibilities, the day-to-day? I would really expect to get the more transparency. And this is why I always teach reps during the interview process. You're going to get a lot of information from the manager, whoever you're interviewing with throughout the process, but you have to be speaking to the reps that work for that hiring manager. They're going to give you the real story. Now, some of them are going to lie to you because they're friends with them, and they're not going to be too mean because they're afraid you're going to go back and tell the manager that. But majority of those reps, they're going to be upfront, and they're going to say, hey, listen, we got a lot of paperwork. And yeah, he's pretty demanding. He's really on top of things. You're going to get the truth, especially the closer you are to getting a role, where you're going to say to yourself, maybe I don't really want to deal with, a manager that's total hell. Because again, it could be a micromanager, and then it could just be someone that's really on top of everything, but it's a great manager. So you'll learn from the reps, is this something that they're going to continue to put up with, or are they 1 foot out the door? And if they're 1 foot out the door, I know we all need to make money, but you don't want to go from having no job into a miserable job. So they'll be able to tell you. So that's the best bet. have those conversations with those sales reps before you move forward.
And that's it, Joe. That's all we got today.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it again, guys. I mean, again, that's basically my closing note. When you're dealing with micromanagers, be proactive. That's the key. Get those reports on time, ahead of time, and look at yourself first, because it could just be you. And if you're speaking to the other reps and they're like, I'm not dealing with that, it's a you problem. Okay. So don't jump to say, this guy sucks. I hate working for him. It's all his fault. No, look at yourself first. And then once you realize that you are doing everything right, you have the conversation with the manager, transparent, because a lot of times all this gets worked out before drastic measures need to be taken. But if you're at that difficult point, you did everything, you even spoke to the manager's manager, and it's still not a fit, guys, just move on. You just got to make a decision. Is this enough where I'm that miserable that I'm willing to leave and go to another company? Or can I deal with this? I mean, just that's up to you to make that decision. But none of us want to be in these situations, guys. But it doesn't mean that just because you're with the micromanager that everything sucks and this can't be navigated. It definitely can. And for any of you after the call, if you want to work one-on-one, we have many avenues at RepPath where we can help. We also have the RepPath Academy, which I'm very excited, which has been doing fantastic. We're working with candidates all throughout the country. So we have the option of joining the Academy. The best part about the Academy, guys, is the community that you're in, because especially with these situations, you're dealing with a micromanager, there could be another 10 people in the community that you could discuss that are going through the same thing you're going through. And then before you know it, they didn't leave their job, but they handled it certain ways. And you could have those conversations with them. So that's another reason why I really stress, everyone joining the RepPath Academy. Feel free to reach out. You could shoot me an email, joe@reppath.com, or send me a message via LinkedIn. Whatever is easier for you guys. We could jump on an intro call so I can give you more info. We also still offer one-on-one calls to handle a lot of these challenges. And for any of you that is a lobby member or any individuals on this call, please use the promo code Licata, Licata, so you can get additional discounts. Guys, I want to thank you again for joining us today. And remember, guys, every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing these calls. I have a great guest, great sales leader on Wednesday, which I'm excited. So hopefully you guys can join us this Wednesday. And I look forward to seeing you soon, and have a great week. Take care.